In this video, I'm going to show you 5 of my tips on how I treat and care for my e-bike batteries. Now, I've been working with e-bikes and e-bike batteries since around about 2015. And in that time, I've read all kinds of articles and manufacturer recommendations on how to take care of your e-bike batteries. There's all kinds of different opinions out there, so I thought I'd tell you about how I take care of my e-bike batteries based on all the information I've learned over the years. Now, keep in mind, this is how I take care of my batteries, and it's worked well for me over the years. First, how long do e-bike batteries last? Well, generally, most modern e-bike batteries have a life based on charge cycles. 700 to 1,000 charging cycles is common for most of the e-bike batteries today. Of course, this all depends on how they've been treated, how they've been stored, and if the batteries have been 100% discharged after each use. A charging cycle is usually based on a fully discharged battery being charged to 100%. If you fully charge a battery that's only been 50% discharged, then that's generally considered half of a cycle. To put that into perspective on how long they last, check out these numbers. Let's say you ride every other day for a year. That's 365 days divided by 2 every other day, and that equals 185 days. Then, let's say, on those days you ride a full battery distance of, say, 40 miles. Then let's use the 900 number as the lifetime charging cycles of your battery. That's 900 charge cycles divided by 185 yearly charge cycles, which equals 4.9 years of cycle charges. That's almost 5 years of life for your e-bike battery. So if you go even further, using those average numbers, that's 7,400 miles per year, and a total of 37,000 miles for the life of your e-bike battery. Now, I have 2 batteries, so double that, and that's about 10 years and 74,000 miles of life for my e-bike batteries. So, really, I don't worry too much about battery life. 10 years and 74,000 miles is plenty for me. Now, of course, these are just general specs, and a lot depends on, how big and how many amp hours your battery has, how your batteries are cared for, and also based on the batteries being fully discharged and fully charged after each use. My batteries are 48 volt, 21 amp hour batteries, and amp hours equate to range. More amp hours equals more range. Now, if you're interested in extending your battery life as far as possible, most would agree you'll get more charge cycles out of your battery if you charge to 80 to 90% on each charge. Now, I charge 100% every time because I want to be ready for any type of ride. And usually, I never know what type of ride I'm going to do next or who I might be riding with. So I like to stay fully charged so I can jump on the bike at any time and do any type of ride with whoever I want. And as I mentioned before, I'm happy with 10 years and 74,000 miles of battery life. However, if most of your rides you only use 50% of the battery, then only charging to 80% will help you increase the battery life. But it's also recommended that every 5th or 6th charge, you charge to 100% to help the battery balance the internal cells. Tip number 2, charging. Now, some bikes allow for charging while the battery is still mounted to the bike. And I've always taken the battery off of the bike to charge. And I do this because it's much easier for me to control the charging environment. Not too cold, not too hot. This has worked well for me even when I've taken the bike on vacation. I charge the battery off of the bike. Now, when you finish a ride, always let the battery settle and cool before starting to charge it. Maybe at least 30 minutes. Don't just rush up after a ride and immediately start the charge. Now, charging your battery before it's had time to settle can shorten its life and even cause damage to it. Now, most chargers and battery systems have an automatic charging shutoff system. It's called the Battery Management System, or BMS. Now, BMS will stop the charging when the battery is fully charged. Even so, you still need to disconnect the charger from the battery when the charging is complete. Now, I don't leave the batteries unattended while charging, but if you have to, I highly recommend getting a timer to shut the charger off after the normal charging cycle time is complete. Leaving a battery plugged into the charger all the time will definitely shorten the life of the battery and, again, can actually cause damage. Tip number 3, storing your battery. I treat my batteries like I want to be treated. Not too cold, not too hot, and kept dry. Generally, in the 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit range is considered a good storage temperature for your batteries. This is also considered to be the best temperature to charge your batteries. If you're going to be storing your batteries and not using them for, say, 2 or 3 months, then it would be best to remove the batteries from the bike and store the batteries in an area that's not too cold and not too hot, and have it charged to about 60 to 70% when you're leaving it storaged. Now, personally, I never store the batteries on the bike. If you're planning on storing your battery and your battery's already at 100%, just take a short ride and use a little bit of the battery up before storing it. Also, it's not good for your battery to be stored completely discharged either. Batteries do lose a little charge over time, even when just being stored. So if you store your battery in a fully discharged state, it could drain to the level that could damage the battery and not recharge. Tip number 4, fully discharging your battery. Now, constantly fully discharging your battery isn't good for the battery life either. Now, that being said, fully discharging your battery once in a while isn't going to destroy the battery. The BMS system will prevent the battery from discharging to a level that will destroy or harm the battery. In other words, if you're 2 or 3 miles from home and your battery is getting down to the yellow and into the red range, I would certainly ride the bike home. That's way better than pushing that last few miles. However, constantly running your battery until it quits can damage it. Now, if you're consistently on rides where you're running the battery to a full discharge, then it's time to get a larger capacity battery or carry a second battery. Tip number 5, external battery damage. Your battery casing is actually pretty tough, but you do need to take steps to protect it. The outside casing does actually 2 main things. First, it does offer some impact protection, but mostly it's designed to hold all of the battery cells and internal electronics secure and in place, which basically means the casing wasn't designed to be dropped. And dropping an e-bike battery can severely damage the internal parts. And the problem is that the damage might be unseen from the exterior. So don't drop your battery. The second thing the outer casing does is protect the internal workings from the weather. While not being waterproof, most battery casings do a pretty good job of protecting the internal components from the rain and the snow, which means don't ride your bike into a lake or drop your battery into the water. Now, here's a bonus tip. Tip number 6. A couple of things that batteries really don't like. And batteries don't like extreme cold or heat. And the batteries do lose performance and can be damaged in extreme conditions. However, It's generally found to be okay if the battery is stored at room temperature and then mounted on the bike just before it's taken out into the cold or heat for a ride. Keep in mind, whether it's extreme heat or cold, the battery will lose performance in these extreme conditions, which usually means less range. Now, I know I've mentioned this already, but it's worth repeating. Never store your batteries in extreme cold, heat, or in direct sunlight. In other words, don't store it in the trunk of your car when it's 150 degrees out there, or on the dashboard of your car, and don't store it out in the shed where it's 40 below. Now, I've used all these tips to take care of my batteries, and it's done me well for all these years.